When I realized my life had ended, the feeling wasn't peaceful. It was heavy with regret. Looking back at everything, my entire existence felt like a bad joke, where I was the punchline everyone laughed at. My fiancée, Sarah, was an army major, and I had spent my whole life revolving around her. But this time, things were going to be different. I wasn't going to be the joke anymore. I was going to leave Sarah and actually live for myself. I stood there, feeling the weight of the college acceptance letter in my pocket. I tucked it away carefully. When I looked outside, the sky seemed bluer than I remembered, and the sun felt warmer on my skin. Everything looked sharp and clear. The feeling of getting a second chance was hard to put into words, but it felt like taking a deep breath after holding it for 40 years. To celebrate this fresh start, I went out and bought some groceries, heading back to my place to cook a meal just for me. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and getting things ready, when I heard footsteps coming up the walk. A moment later, the front door was pushed open and Sarah walked in. She was carrying a large travel bag. As soon as she had the door open, she turned around and spoke to someone behind her in a warm, inviting voice. "Come on in," she said. "From now on, you need to think of this place as your home." Following Sarah's invitation, a thin man named Mark walked in, followed closely by his younger brother, Timmy. I paused what I was doing and looked at them. Mark saw me standing in the kitchen and offered a shy, almost nervous smile. "Hi, Jack," Mark said. "I hope Timmy and I won't be too much trouble for you and Sarah staying here." I just stared at Mark and Timmy, completely caught off guard. In my previous life, Sarah hadn't brought them home to live with us until 2 months later. I wondered why the timeline had shifted so much this time around. Because I didn't answer right away, Sarah frowned at me. "Mark is talking to you," she snapped. "Why aren't you answering him? Do you have no manners at all?" I looked at this younger version of Sarah. She was stunningly beautiful. I couldn't deny that. That face was the reason I had loved her so blindly for over 40 years, and it was the reason I had let her waste 40 years of my life. But the tone she used with me, the look on her face, it was already so bossy and dismissive. It seemed she had started resenting me much earlier than I realized. I must have been truly blind in my last life not to see it. I forced a small, polite smile. "It's not that I don't want to answer him, Sarah. It's that I don't really know how. This is your house. I'm just a guest here, really, same as Mark. I'm not the host. So them being here isn't really any trouble for me to worry about, is it?" My comment made Sarah's expression darken. She shot a glare at me, clearly unhappy with my attitude, but she didn't say anything else. She just ushered Mark and Timmy upstairs to get them settled in. I stayed downstairs and calmly went back to my cooking. About 30 minutes later, Sarah brought the 2 brothers back downstairs. She glanced at the food I had already set out on the table. "Is dinner ready?" she asked. "If it is, let's eat." Timmy, who was 8 years old, darted into the kitchen with way too much energy. He started grabbing things, making himself right at home. He dished out 3 bowls of rice and carried them to the table, shouting happily, "Sarah, time to eat!" Sarah pulled out a chair for Mark, acting very polite and caring. She didn't look at me once as the 3 of them sat down together. They were all smiles, like a happy little family. Mark used his chopsticks to put a piece of meat in Sarah's bowl, and she did the same for him and his brother. They were completely ignoring me as I stood off to the side. I watched them coldly. Timmy stuffed a huge mouthful of meat into his mouth. I knew their backstory. Mark and Timmy's parents had passed away, and they had been living with an aunt and uncle. Rumor had it that the relatives weren't very nice and made their lives difficult, so meat was probably a rare treat for them. Seeing the big platter of food made Timmy's eyes light up, and he looked like he was practically drooling. He chewed quickly and reached for more from the platter. But just as his chopsticks touched the plate, his eyes went wide. His face turned bright red, and he immediately spat out the meat he was chewing. Sarah and Mark weren't quite as dramatic, but they were struggling too. Both of their faces were flushed red, their mouths hanging open as they panted, trying to cool down their tongues. It was kind of pathetic to watch. Sarah covered her mouth and ran into the kitchen to find water. Mark was gasping for air, trying to comfort Timmy, who now had tears and snot running down his face. It was a chaotic mix of ridiculous and gross. After about 10 minutes of coughing and drinking water, Sarah and the brothers finally calmed down. Sarah turned to glare at me, her face grim. "Jack, why did you put so many hot peppers in the meat?" she demanded. "We don't eat spicy food. You did this on purpose, didn't you?" Mark chimed in, looking at me accusingly. "Jack, are you unhappy that Timmy and I moved in? If that's the case, just say so. To avoid causing problems between you and Sarah, Timmy and I will just leave." As he spoke, Mark put on a pitiful expression, acting like the ultimate victim. His eyes got watery as he grabbed Timmy and pretended to head for the door. There was no way Sarah was going to let him leave. She immediately stopped him, blocking his path. I just watched the three of them perform their little drama, keeping my face completely blank. Seeing me just standing there without reacting or apologizing made Sarah furious. She yelled at me, "Jack, what is wrong with you? Get over here and apologize to Mark and Timmy right now." I replied slowly and calmly. "Apologize for what? What exactly did I do wrong?" "You deliberately cooked the food so spicy to mess with Mark and Timmy," she shouted. "Don't you think you should apologize for that?" "Sarah, that's ridiculous," I said. "Did you ever tell me that Mark and Timmy were moving in today?" "No, you didn't. So why would I have any reason to target them? Besides, I love spicy food. I can't enjoy a meal without it. Who am I bothering by cooking food I like for myself? Is it my fault you guys can't handle the heat? You have hands and feet. If you want something different, cook it yourself. Anyone with a brain understands that concept." My response left Sarah speechless. She knew she hadn't consulted me at all about bringing Mark and Timmy home. She just assumed I would automatically fall in line and wait on them hand and foot, like a personal servant. But I wasn't the same Jack from my past life, the one who revolved entirely around her. What she liked to eat was none of my business anymore. Unable to come up with a good comeback, Sarah stood there fuming. Mark stepped in, trying to play the peacemaker. "Jack, you didn't know we were coming, so it's not technically your fault," Mark said. "Just be more careful next time." So they still expected me to be their maid and take care of their needs? I let out a cold laugh. "Let me make one thing clear," I said. "If you want to eat, you cook it yourself. I'm not anyone's butler or servant, and I'm certainly not in the habit of taking care of strangers." My bluntness wiped the smile right off Mark's face. Sarah, feeling like she had lost face in front of her guests, angrily took Mark and Timmy out to a restaurant to eat. Once they were gone, I scraped all the food that Sarah and the two brothers had touched into the trash can. Then, I went back to the kitchen and cooked a new meal just for myself. That's right, I did do it on purpose. I knew perfectly well that Sarah, Mark, and Timmy couldn't handle spicy food. So I deliberately made the dish incredibly hot, salty, and numbing to welcome them. I didn't come back in this life to be a doormat. Sarah and Mark would soon find out that I wasn't someone to be messed with. After enjoying a delicious, fiery meal alone, I started thinking about my next steps. Since I was reborn, there was no way I would live the same life as before. I had to go to college, which meant my engagement to Sarah had to be called off. I needed to go see Sarah's parents and break things off properly. The Millers lived over 100 miles away from where we were staying. I decided to buy a bus ticket for the next day and go back to set things straight. The bus station was a bit of a walk from our place, so I headed out. After buying the ticket, I thought I should bring a gift for Mr. and Mrs. Miller, so I went to the local mall. I never expected to run into Sarah, Mark, and Timmy there. They were in the bedding section, picking out sheets. The sales clerk, seeing that Sarah and Mark were around the same age and looked good together, assumed they were a couple shopping for their wedding. She enthusiastically pushed a set of bright red sheets with a traditional wedding design on them. Mark blushed slightly but didn't correct her. Sarah didn't deny it either. In the end, Mark chose a blue set of sheets and Sarah paid for it. Sarah didn't see me. She then bought some candy for Timmy. Timmy was thrilled. "You're the best, Sarah," Timmy cheered. "Why is someone as amazing as you with a jerk like Jack? He doesn't deserve you at all." Sarah didn't even try to stop Timmy from attacking my character, letting him badmouth me freely. Just then, Mark, who was looking at some local souvenirs, spotted me and quickly stopped his brother. "Don't talk nonsense, Timmy," Mark said. "Jack is actually a pretty good guy. He and Sarah look good together." "Good together?" Timmy scoffed. "What are you talking about? Sarah is beautiful and kind. She even bought me candy. But Jack? You can just tell he's a bad person. He deliberately tried to mess with me and my brother earlier." Sarah cleared her throat. "What happened at lunch was Jack's fault. I apologize on his behalf. I'll talk to him when we get back. It won't happen again." "It's fine. It wasn't a big deal," Mark said, his eyes glancing in my direction before adding, "I'm just curious, Sarah. How did you and he get together?" "How else?" Sarah sighed, a look of helplessness on her face. "An arranged marriage set up by our parents when we were kids." "Wow. An arranged marriage," Mark said. "I thought you two were together because you fell in love." "No," Sarah said. "Jack and I have nothing in common. If I were choosing for myself, I wouldn't pick someone with his personality." Hearing them talk about me like that, I wasn't even angry. I just laughed to myself. Sarah was right about one thing. Our engagement was arranged by our parents. My father and her father, Mr. Miller, were army buddies, as close as brothers. My mother and her mother, Mrs. Miller, were also best friends. When they got married, they made a pact. If they had a boy and a girl, the kids would be married. If they had 2 boys, they'd be brothers. 2 girls, sisters. So Sarah and I were betrothed from the day we were born. My parents and hers exchanged engagement tokens. My family gave Sarah a jade pendant, and her family gave me an expensive wristwatch. If I was going to break off the engagement, I had to return the watch in person, and I had to get my family's jade pendant back. Also, if I was going to make a clean break from Sarah, I needed to think about moving out of her house. My father died heroically on a mission, and my mother, consumed by grief, followed him a few months later. I became an orphan, and Mr. and Mrs. Miller took me in and raised me. I was incredibly grateful for their care. But in all the years I lived with them, I never took a dime of their money. As the child of a fallen soldier, I received survivor benefits. In other words, I had my own money. After leaving Sarah, I wouldn't have to worry about my finances at all. Right now, the first thing I had to do was call off the engagement. I already had the bus ticket. First thing tomorrow, I'd go back and talk to Mr. and Mrs. Miller about ending things. Sarah, in my last life, I brought all my suffering on myself by holding on. This time, I'll be the one to let go. That evening, I ate some dumplings at a restaurant and didn't get back to the house until late. From a distance, I could hear laughter and happy voices. When I opened the door, I saw Sarah and Mark in the kitchen cooking together. They stood side by side, smiling. Every now and then, Mark would nudge Sarah, making her laugh. Sarah would look back at him with a gentle smile. In my last life, and this one, I had never once seen Sarah cook. She was always waited on hand and foot. Even when I was sick with a stomachache, she wouldn't lift a finger to make a meal. So, this is the difference between loving someone and not loving them. It was so obvious. Hearing me close the door, they both turned. Sarah instinctively moved a little away from Mark. "You're back," she said. "Dinner's almost ready. Go wash your hands and get ready to eat." I ignored her, a smirk playing on my lips as I carried my bag of souvenirs to my room. I pushed open the bedroom door and was stunned by the mess inside. My clothes and blanket were thrown carelessly on the floor. There were footprints on the blanket and stains all over my clean clothes. The nightstand had been ransacked. Books and pens were scattered everywhere. But what angered me the most was that the few photos I had of my parents were torn and thrown on the ground. The culprit, Timmy, was grinning at me, a defiant and careless look on his face that sent a wave of fury through me. "Who let you in my room?" I demanded. "Is this your room?" Timmy shot back. "You're shameless. This is clearly Sarah's house. You're just a freeloader, and she can't stand you." As Timmy spoke, he made a move to rip the photo of my parents he was still holding. I shouted, Put it down right now!" Timmy paid me no mind and tore another gash in the photo. Enraged, I lunged forward. "Give it to me! I'm warning you, don't touch my pictures!" Timmy made a face at me and let out a blood-curdling scream. The sound was piercing. "He's hitting me! Jack is hitting me! It hurts so much!" As he yelled, he threw himself at me, tearing and biting. For such a small kid, he was surprisingly strong. I never expected him to go berserk like that. He bit my hand hard, drawing blood. Wincing in pain, I shoved him away. Timmy fell backward with a heavy thud. His screams grew even louder. Hearing Timmy's cries, Sarah and Mark rushed upstairs. Seeing Timmy on the floor wailing, Sarah was furious. "What did you do, Jack?" she yelled. "Why would you do this to Timmy? He's just a child." Mark rushed over to help Timmy up. The boy's mouth was full of blood as he cried, "My tooth! Jack knocked my tooth out!" Seeing Timmy spitting blood, Sarah was frantic and started screaming at me. She called me cruel and heartless for attacking a child. I ignored her yelling, simply picking up the torn photos of my parents and gently wiping them clean. Mark held Timmy, his eyes red and his voice choked with emotion. "He's the only brother I have left. He's so young, and you knocked his tooth out. Jack, how could you be so vicious? If you didn't want us here, you could have just said so. Did you really have to attack an 8-year-old boy?" Sarah, while comforting Mark, looked at me with disgust. "Jack, I never thought you were this kind of person. You've disappointed me so much. I'm telling you, you have to apologize to Timmy and beg for his forgiveness, or else you'll what?" I held up my bleeding hand and looked at Sarah. "Are you blind, or is your heart blind? Can't you see what's been done to my room?" Seeing my bloody hand, Sarah froze for a second. "Well, Timmy is just a kid. It's in their nature to be rowdy. You can clean up the mess." I laughed coldly. "Then tell me, what about this? What am I supposed to do about the only photos I have left of my parents?" She was still defending Timmy. "Well, he didn't do it on purpose. Timmy doesn't know any better. He just accidentally tore it. That's no reason to attack him. Sarah, you don't actually believe I knocked his tooth out, do you?" I continued. "If that's what you think, let's go to the hospital right now and get him checked out. We'll see if I really knocked his tooth out and made him spit blood, or if his so-called spitting blood is just another one of his tricks." Now that I'd called their bluff, Both Timmy and Mark went quiet. Sarah fell silent too. She grew up with me. She knew what kind of person I was. The room was quiet. I looked coldly at Timmy and Mark. "Let's go," I said. "We're going to the hospital to get those injuries looked at." My insistence on going to the hospital made Mark panic. "That's not necessary. We don't need your apology. Let's just drop it." "Drop it?" I asked. "You mean your brother gets to bite me for free and we just drop it? If I bit you, would you just drop it? Not to mention my room is a complete disaster. If something's missing, who am I supposed to blame? And I'm telling you, I had cash in this room." Mark trembled with rage. You're accusing us of being thieves? Jack, how can you bully us like this?" The sight of Mark's tear-filled eyes sent Sarah's sympathy into overdrive. She frowned at me. "Jack, that's enough. You're being way too aggressive." I sneered, then yanked open Timmy's jacket and pulled a few bills from his pocket. "What's this? Don't tell me this is your money. Do you look like you have this kind of cash?" Sarah, Mark, and Timmy were all dumbfounded when I pulled out the money the brothers had been crying poor, claiming they were starving. Where would they get this much money? It was obvious they had stolen it from me. Being exposed as a thief in front of Sarah was a huge loss of face for Mark. He slapped Timmy hard across the face. "Who told you to steal?" Mark shouted. "Who told you to be a delinquent? Haven't I taught you? We would rather starve to death than take a single penny from anyone." "What high morals," I said sarcastically. "You won't take a penny, but a few dozen bucks is fine? You're a great role model for your brother, Mark." My sarcasm left Mark utterly humiliated. He scooped up Timmy and left the room sobbing dramatically. Sarah couldn't bear it and ran after them. I cleaned up my trashed room and lay down on the bed, still fully clothed, just a little longer. As soon as I broke the engagement, I was moving out. It was the middle of the night before Sarah managed to coax the brothers back. She came and knocked on my door. "Jack, I brought you some antiseptic. Let me clean your wound." She had been out chasing after them for 4 or 5 hours. If my wound was going to get infected, it would have happened by now. I ignored her and pulled the covers over my head. She waited a moment, then knocked again. "I know you're not asleep. Can we talk?" I knew what she wanted to talk about. She was just going to ask me to be the bigger person and make excuses for the brothers. After living through one lifetime of this, how could I fall for it again? After all, I knew exactly what kind of people those two were. In my past life, after Sarah and I got married, those two brothers moved right in. Mark went to college in D.C., while Timmy stayed with us. I looked after him like he was my own little brother. They say everyone has a heart, and I thought if I was good to Timmy, he would be good to me in return. But that's not what happened. Timmy was lazy and a pathological liar. Whenever Sarah came home from the base or Mark came back from college, he would complain and slander me. He told them I abused him, starved him, refused to do his laundry, and hit him all the time. In my last life, I thought he was just a kid who didn't know any better. It took another lifetime to understand that some people are just born rotten. The brothers' wickedness was in their bones. I didn't want to provoke them or get revenge actively, but that didn't mean I would just take their abuse. If the brothers behaved themselves, I'd break off the engagement, leave, and let Mark and Sarah have their happy ending. If they didn't, then they shouldn't blame me. I had put up with it for a lifetime. I wouldn't put up with it again. If anyone tried to scheme against me, I would pay them back 1,000 times over. The next morning, the brothers were gone. Sarah had bought breakfast and was trying to coax me to sit down and eat. I sat down silently and took a bite of a bun. Sarah kept her eyes on me. Seeing my cold attitude and how I wasn't initiating conversation, she spoke first. "Does your hand still hurt?" I scoffed. Why don't you let someone bite you and find out? My completely different attitude was starting to get to her. Look, Jack, I just feel sorry for Mark and his brother. They have no family and were abused by their aunt and uncle. I couldn't just stand by, so I wanted to help them. There are plenty of people who need help, I said. Why them and not someone else? My question left Sarah stumped. Her face darkened. She forced herself to hold back her anger and was silent for a moment before saying, If you're worried about me, we can go get married now. Her words made me look up at her. Sarah, are you sure you want to marry me? No regrets? My question stunned her. After a long pause, she said, We've been engaged since we were children. So it's because we were engaged as kids that you feel you have to marry me? I cut her off. Falling in love freely is the modern way. Our so-called engagement is an old-fashioned relic. You don't have to force yourself to keep that promise. I put it so bluntly, thinking she would get the hint and suggest we call it off. Then we could just agree and inform her parents. But for some reason, Sarah didn't go along with it. Instead, she said very seriously, Jack, you are my husband. That will never change, not in this lifetime. Her words made me want to laugh. She had already moved her lover and his brother into our home. How could she still lie to my face like that? It was no wonder I was so easily deceived in my past life. I was just that stupid, that foolish, unable to see the situation for what it was. I didn't understand why Sarah still wanted to marry me. Just the thought of her busy taking wedding photos with Mark while I was on my deathbed made my blood boil with hatred. If she wanted to keep up the act, let her. I wasn't going to waste my time with her anymore. I changed the subject. I'm planning to go back and see the Millers. Oh, I've been a bit busy lately, so I don't have time to go with you, she said. I don't need you to come, I replied. I've already bought my ticket. I'm leaving today. Sarah stared at me, stunned. After a moment, she said, I'll drive you to the station. In the end, Sarah didn't take me to the station. A tearful call from Mark pulled her away. I went to the bus station without any emotion. A few hours later, I was sitting in the Millers' living room with the gifts I'd bought. When I told them I wanted to end my relationship with Sarah, both Mr. and Mrs. Miller were shocked. Why? Mrs. Miller asked. Did Sarah do something to you? No, I said. It's just that I don't want to get married so soon. I want to go to college. I want to learn, serve my country, and be a useful person like my dad was. Mr. and Mrs. Miller exchanged a look. They didn't believe me. They weren't entirely ignorant of what Sarah had been up to. Mr. Miller said angrily, Is it because of that boy Mark? Don't worry, Jack. You're the son-in-law we've chosen. Only you will ever be part of our family. No, Mr. Miller, it's just me, I insisted. I'm so sorry, but I can't fulfill my engagement to Sarah. Please just agree to this. Seeing my determination, Mr. and Mrs. Miller had no choice but to agree to break the engagement. I took out the watch their family had given mine and returned it. Mrs. Miller gave me back my family's jade pendant. Mr. and Mrs. Miller told me they would always have my back. I was very grateful to them. I figured in my last life Sarah must have only agreed to marry me because her parents pressured her. Thankfully, I had set things right so that wouldn't happen again. With the engagement officially broken, I stayed at the Miller's house for another week before heading back. The return bus was delayed, and I didn't get back to the house until 11 at night. The house was dark. Thinking I should be as quiet as possible to not disturb anyone, I tiptoed in and headed upstairs to my room. But as I approached my door, I heard strange noises coming from inside. It was clearly a man's moans. Was the place haunted? Why would a man be moaning in my room? I threw open the door and flicked on the light. The scene inside burned into my eyes. On my bed, Mark and Sarah were wrapped in a passionate embrace. The sound of the door and the sudden bright light startled Sarah, who shot up. She saw me standing in the doorway, her eyes wide. "Jack, you—" Before she could finish, she glanced at Mark. Terrified, Sarah shoved Mark away. Caught off guard, he tumbled off the bed and onto the floor. Sarah didn't even spare him a glance, instead firing questions at him. "What is going on? What are you doing in Jack's room?" I watched them coldly. Shouldn't you be asking yourselves that? If you're going to do that kind of thing, do it in your own room. Why come to mine? Is it more exciting this way? As my words fell, Mark, still on the floor, choked out. "It's not like that. It's not like that." Sarah also tried to explain frantically. "Jack, it's not what you think. Timmy spilled water on the bedding in my room, so it was wet. I couldn't sleep there. I thought you were out of town, so I came to sleep in your room. I was half asleep and thought I was dreaming." "Is that so?" I asked. "Then how did he end up in my room? Don't tell me your brother also wet the bed in his room, so he had nowhere else to go and had to crash here?" Seeing my sarcastic smile, Mark covered his face. I got up in the night and went into the wrong room." I didn't believe his explanation for a second, and I wondered if Sarah did. I looked at the two of them, practically undressed, and chuckled. "Since it's already come to this, why don't you two just go get married?" I said. These two were so in love. My blessing was like a wish granted. I thought Sarah would take the opportunity and agree, but she surprised me once again. "This was just a misunderstanding," Sarah cried. "We didn't do anything. Jack, believe me, I will never marry anyone but you. You are my one and only husband." Mark's face had lit up with joy when he heard my suggestion, but upon hearing Sarah's rejection, it turned deathly pale. "You can't insult me like this," Mark yelled. "I just walked into the wrong room." He made a dramatic show of wanting to end it all, shouting that he'd been humiliated. I wanted to see if this shameless man would actually have the guts to hurt himself. Of course, Mark wasn't about to die. He thought I would stop him, or at the very least, Sarah would. But Sarah didn't move from the bed, and I was just watching the show. Mark's dramatic exit performance couldn't go on. Just as he was stuck not knowing whether to advance or retreat, Timmy appeared. He clung to Mark, who was pretending to leave, and the two brothers sobbed like they were at a funeral. I watched this scene coldly. If I had known Mark and Sarah were going to get it on, I wouldn't have come back today. I should have waited another 2 days. Damn it. What terrible timing. After that incident, Mark got sick. He stayed in bed, refusing to get up. He wouldn't go to the hospital. He just lay there in his room. I didn't know what scheme he was plotting, but it had nothing to do with me. I had already broken off my engagement to Sarah and had no ties to her. It wasn't appropriate for me to live here anymore. I decided to pack my things and move out. As I was packing in my room, I heard Timmy downstairs crying to Sarah. "My brother won't eat. He says to just let him die. What should I do, Sarah? He's the only family I have. Nothing can happen to him, or I won't be able to go on." Sarah, naturally worried about her sweetheart, followed Timmy to the next room to talk to him. A moment later, I heard Mark's hoarse sobs from the other room. "How am I supposed to live? I can't go on. Just let me die." Sarah's attempts to console him didn't work. Instead, he started making a scene again. I listened to the drama while I packed. I don't know what Sarah said to him. The crying and yelling finally stopped. I figured Sarah must have promised to marry him. Now that he got what he wanted, there was no need to pretend to want to die. I continued packing my things when Sarah came knocking on my door. I asked coldly, "What is it?" "Jack, let's talk." "Talk about what?" I looked at her sarcastically. Sarah met my gaze and then looked away, flustered. "Jack, don't look at me like that. Nothing happened between me and Mark." You were in the same bed. You call that nothing? We didn't go all the way. Jack, this wasn't our fault. So it was my fault? I sneered. Of course it wasn't your fault either. I just wanted to tell you that I never intended to betray you. What happened last night was just an accident, and I'm glad you came back. Huh? Right. I admit I interrupted you. It's all my fault. Jack, what are you talking about? It's not like that between me and Mark. Then what is it like? Lying in bed together in the dark? Were you two just chatting about the future? You didn't need to take your clothes off for that. My comeback made Sarah's face flush. I told you I thought I was dreaming, didn't I? I thought it was you, so I let myself go. I spat on the floor. Don't disgust me. Sarah looked as if she had been deeply insulted. Everything I'm saying is true. If I'm telling a single lie, may I be struck by lightning. Her oath meant nothing to me. I didn't believe in divine punishment. If oaths worked, I wouldn't have been deceived by her in my last life. And in my last life, the cheating, unfaithful Sarah wouldn't have ended up so successful, outliving me to marry the man of her dreams, Mark. I was fed up with her trying to explain herself. I'm not interested in your relationship with him, so you don't need to explain it to me. You're my fiancé. If you're not interested, who would be? Ha! I shot her a cold laugh, not wanting to get dragged into this any further. So what did you want to talk to me about? Just get to the point. Well, Mark is innocent, she said. He feels so guilty about last night that he just wants to die. So is he dead yet? I asked coldly. Sarah stared at me, stunned. After a moment, she stammered, Jack, how can you be so cold-blooded? Cold-blooded? Someone who truly wants to die doesn't go around announcing it to everyone. Only someone putting on a show would pull a stunt like that. My words left Sarah speechless. She stared at me for a long time. Jack, you seem like a different person. Do I? Or is it you who's changed? I haven't. I feel the same way about you as I always have. I laughed coldly again. Seeing that my face no longer showed adoration, but only impatience, Sarah must have realized that arguing was pointless, so she got straight to the point. Mark is so ashamed he just wants to die. It took me a long time to talk him out of it. He says he's too embarrassed to stay here and wants to leave. But he's just a boy. Where can he go with his little brother? I feel sorry for him, so I thought of a compromise. I didn't say a word, just stared at her. Seeing that I wasn't responding, Sarah paused for a moment before continuing. You and I are getting married soon, and you won't be going to college after that anyway. Why don't you give your college spot to Mark? Hearing her words, I let out a soft laugh. Is this your idea, or did Mark suggest it? It's my idea. Is that so? And why should I agree to that? I looked at her coldly and shot back. And what gives you the right to make decisions for me? Who do you think you are? I'm not... Aren't we engaged? Your business is my business. Forget that we aren't even married yet. Even if we were, you don't get to make my decisions for me. You're the one who made the mistake. Why should I be the one to pay for it? Besides, who knows if it was even your mistake? I reminded her coldly and deliberately. Maybe this was a plan you two cooked up together just to screw me over, wasn't it? Sarah jumped up in anger. How can you say that about me? I'm your fiancé. Not after we break the engagement, you're not. Sarah was shocked by my casual tone. What do you mean? You want to break off the engagement with me? Why? Why? You don't know? You brought another man into our home to take care of him, and you even slept in the same bed with him. Since you two are so in love, just be together. I'll step aside and let you have your happiness. Sarah vehemently denied her relationship with Mark. What nonsense are you talking about? It's not what you think between us. I told you my husband can only be you, no one else. I watched Sarah like she was a clown in a circus. Her face was red with anger. Jack, you used to listen to me so well. Whatever I said, you did. Why won't you think of me this time?" She had the nerve to bring up the past. She knew how much I loved her, and she still hurt me so shamelessly. How could she be so despicable? The old me was stupid, hopelessly so. The new me doesn't want to be that stupid anymore. I didn't want to listen to her ramble on. "Your idea of me giving my college spot to Mark is off the table. Tell him to forget it. What a piece of work. If you want to go to college, earn your way in. Scheming for someone else's spot, you'd think he'd have the decency to be ashamed." I raised my voice when I said that last part. I was sure Mark and Timmy were eavesdropping next door. It was hilarious. They screw up and they want me to compensate them by giving them my college spot. Who gave them the nerve? I pushed Sarah out of the room and continued packing. Suddenly, something occurred to me. Sarah and Mark seemed so practiced in this idea of him taking my place. Could it be that in my past life, Mark went to college by secretly taking my spot after I gave up my chance to marry Sarah? Why would someone who had nothing to do with me even have such an idea? Was it that Sarah was in on it with him? Had they been plotting to get my college spot all along? The thought sent a chill down my spine. If that was true, then my last life was an even bigger tragedy than I thought. I had to get out of here immediately and never have anything to do with them again. I grabbed my packed bags to leave, but Sarah blocked my way. She wouldn't let me move out. She stood firmly in the doorway. "Jack, where are you going?" "I'm moving out." "I won't let you. You don't get to decide anymore. I'm moving out." "Jack, is this because of Mark? I swear there's nothing between us. I know you've been wronged. I'll find a place for Mark to move to, and I'll cut off all contact with him." Her words surprised me. What was she trying to do? Was a single college spot really worth all this effort? I couldn't figure her out, but I was determined to leave. Sarah threatened me. "I'm your fiancé, and everyone knows it. If you move out, who would dare take you in? This is interfering with a military marriage. Do you know you could go to jail for that?" Sarah was right. She was a major now, and everyone knew about us. If I made a scene, no one would dare to help me. I swallowed my anger and went back into the room. Just a little longer. In about 10 days, I'd be off to college, and then I'd never come back. Not being able to move out as planned left me feeling uneasy. For some reason, a terrible suspicion crossed my mind. If that damn couple had been eyeing my college spot all along, then they would stop at nothing to get it. Keeping me here was just part of their plan. I had to be on my guard and prepare myself. While I was secretly getting ready, Sarah left on a mission. With Sarah gone, Mark came to negotiate with me directly. Now that the cards were on the table, Mark dropped the act. He got straight to the point. "Jack, you know what happened between me and Sarah that day. If you don't want her reputation ruined, you'd better give me your college spot." I scoffed. "You're speaking too quietly. Say it louder." "I'm not kidding," Mark hissed. "This is serious. You know how big the fallout from this would be. If I spread the word that Sarah is a shameless woman, her life will be over. You love her so much. Are you really willing to watch her be branded a tramp?" I looked at Mark with a half smile. "Just a reminder, don't get yourself into trouble. The police aren't Sarah. They won't be charmed by you or fall for your stupid tricks." Jack, are you sure you want to go head-to-head with me like this?" My words hit a nerve, and Mark's face flushed. He softened his tone. "I'm not trying to steal Sarah from you. I'll be honest, she likes me. All I have to do is beckon, and she'll dump you for me." "Then go ahead and beckon her. Why are you talking to me?" "I don't like you." "No, why are you so difficult to talk to? I already told you I won't compete with you for Sarah. I'm not asking for much. You and Sarah are getting married soon, and you won't be going to college anyway. What's the big deal with giving the spot to me? It's a win-win situation. If you think marrying Sarah is so great, then you marry her. Why are you bugging me? I'm not your parent. I'm not going to spoil you. If you want my college spot, forget it. My firm refusal left Mark with no other options, and he left in a huff. I knew they wouldn't give up that easily. As long as those two brothers lived under the same roof with me, knowing their nature, I remained on high alert, worried they would pull something shady. I sewed my college acceptance letter into the lining of my clothes and hid my money well. I would not give them or Sarah any opportunity to break me. Time flew by, and Sarah returned from her mission. She had found a new place for Mark, but he stubbornly refused to move out. He kept pretending to be sick, threatening to die if he had to leave. I guess it's true what they say. It's easier to invite the devil in than to ask him to leave. Or maybe this was all just a show to confuse me. Whatever the case, it had nothing to do with me. My departure date was getting closer. Sarah was constantly being called over by Mark to talk about who knows what. Every time she came back from talking with him, her face was grim. I could tell she was under a lot of pressure, probably facing some kind of trouble. I figured their biggest problem right now was trying to get my college spot. I decided to wait and see what they would do. Seeing how quiet I was, Sarah probably thought I had given up on leaving. Her attitude toward me suddenly changed. Sarah started being extra nice to me. She would buy me my favorite sweets, ask me to go for walks and chats, and even offered to take me to the movies. In the past, these were things I would have begged for, but now I refused them all. Who knew what kind of trap Sarah would set for me just for Mark's sake? I wouldn't be fooled so easily. While I remained unmovable, Mark's sickness got him sent to the hospital several times, with Sarah taking him each time. He would make a huge scene, but the doctors could never find anything wrong with him, so he'd come back after all the fuss. I could see Sarah's frustration. She hadn't succeeded in tricking me out of the college spot for her beloved man. She was getting desperate. I knew both Sarah and Mark were out of options. I was sure they were plotting something new to trap me. Sure enough, Sarah came to me to vent. He won't move out. What do we do now? Let him rot, obviously. What does this have to do with me? If I had known it would be like this, I never should have felt sorry for him. Sarah sighed, still not giving up. How about this, Jack? Just give him the college spot. That way he'll probably move out. So she was still after my college spot. After all this, I couldn't refuse again. Refusing again might lead to trouble, and right now, all I wanted was a smooth exit. I didn't have the energy to deal with them. I relented. Let me think about it. Seeing me give in, Sarah's brow relaxed. She took my hand and promised emotionally, Jack, I'll be good to you. Don't worry, I'll be good to you for the rest of our lives. You can just stay home and raise the kids, and I'll support you forever. Her hand on mine made me sick to my stomach. Being good to me meant turning me into a workhorse and a nanny. Being good to me meant rushing to marry Mark before I was even cold in my grave. I saw Sarah's true colors once again. She was just as shameless and despicable as Mark. I knew I couldn't win against them. I didn't want to get tangled up with this trashy couple anymore. Getting bitten by a rabid dog is a lot of trouble, and you can't just bite it back. I decided to leave early. To keep Sarah calm, I gave her a firm answer. After we get married, I'll give the spot to Mark. Sarah thought I was using this to force her to marry me, and she agreed to move the wedding up. I watched her busy preparations with cold eyes. I knew the wedding would never happen. After all, in my last life, Sarah took a mission during this time and postponed the wedding. If things went as expected, the same would happen this time. 2 more days passed, and Sarah left on another mission. Before she left, she made a point to talk to me. Jack, you're the one I love. I've already submitted the marriage application. To prove it, she even showed me the application form. "Don't cause any trouble for me. Just wait patiently at home. When I get back from my mission, we'll get married." I feigned a look of pleasant surprise and agreed. "Let me turn in the application. You just focus on your mission." Sarah, thinking I didn't trust her and wanted to turn it in myself, readily handed me the form. Of course, I wasn't going to turn it in. As soon as I was out the door, I tore it to shreds and threw it in a gutter. After Sarah left, I hurried to the station and bought a train ticket. When I got back, Mark looked at me with a sneer. "So when are you going to give me that college spot?" I sneered back. "What's the rush?" Mark said hatefully. "How can I not be in a rush? School is about to start. I need to get my documents in order, handle the paperwork, and a bunch of other things. I'm afraid I won't have enough time. How about you just give it to me now?" "In your dreams," I refused him. "Just wait. When Sarah gets back from her mission, I'll give it to you." Mark was not a patient person. His anxiety was palpable. He was practically burning with it. That night, I woke up with a stomachache and had to use the bathroom. As I passed the brothers' room, I saw their light was still on. What were they planning so late at night? As the saying goes, you can't be too careful. I had no intention of hurting anyone, but I was worried about being hurt. So I crept closer and listened at the wall. And I heard something truly shocking. Mark was angrily scolding Timmy. "Didn't you say he would give me the spot without a fight? Why isn't anything going according to your plan?" "How should I know?" Timmy replied. "In the last life, he gave up college to marry Sarah, and she gave you the spot without any effort. This time he's completely unmovable. It's like he's possessed." A jolt went through me. Timmy was reborn too? "Have you noticed that Jack has changed a lot?" Timmy continued. "I've noticed. In our last life, he was like a dutiful old nanny, always trying to please us and taking care of our every need. He did whatever Sarah said. But this time, he couldn't care less about us, and is cold to Sarah too." At that, Mark's voice shot up. "Don't you think he might have been reborn too?" "Could he be?" Timmy asked. "It must be," Mark said. "There's no other way to explain Jack's change. So what do we do now? If Jack was reborn, he must remember what happened last time. He definitely won't let it go, which means it'll be almost impossible for me to get his college spot." Mark lowered his voice, speaking with venom. "We have to find a way to force him to give me the spot." His voice was full of malice and determination. A shiver ran down my spine, and I silently returned to my room. I couldn't sleep that night. Just in case, it was better for me to leave as soon as possible. There's no time like the present. I decided to leave tomorrow. The next morning, my eyelid wouldn't stop twitching. They say a twitch in the left eye means money and in the right, disaster. It was my right eye that was twitching. I had a bad feeling something was about to happen. To prevent any foul play, I made a big show of calling over the neighbors from the courtyard to help me pack. I asked Mr. Henderson, Mr. Carter, Mike, and a couple of other guys from the block to help me move my things. Mark and Timmy never dreamed I would pull a move like this. When they saw 5 or 6 people suddenly flood the house to help me move my stuff, Mark was dumbfounded. "What's going on? Why are you moving things? Who are you?" "What's it to you?" Mr. Henderson, one of the neighbors I'd called, shot back. "I'm just worried about Jack." "Worried?" Mr. Carter added. "Aren't you just hoping he'd leave? A single man shamelessly living in his fiancée's house? Anyone can see what you're up to." One of the older men spoke bluntly without holding back. Mark's face turned livid, but he couldn't utter a single word in his defense. As they loaded the last of my things onto the truck, I saw the restrained fury in the brothers' eyes. I knew they couldn't hold back any longer. Their final desperate plan was about to unfold. All my luggage was already out. I was about to get in the truck and leave. From upstairs, Timmy's voice called out, "Jack, you left something behind. It's the photos of your parents. I found them under the bed." I treasured anything related to my parents, and they knew my weakness. They knew I would never abandon my parents' photos. I would definitely go upstairs to get them. I knew a storm was waiting for me up there. Since they were so impatient, I decided to play along and give them what they wanted. I called back, "I'm coming to get it." Upstairs, Mark and Timmy both had nervous expressions. "Bro, is he going to come get it?" Timmy asked in a worried whisper. "He has to," Mark said. "I heard he's always been super careful with his parents' things, treats them like treasure. The other day when you tore his photos, he got so mad. He won't leave them behind." "Then let's get ready," Timmy said. "As soon as he comes upstairs, we make our move. Just be a little gentle when you push me, okay? Don't actually cripple me." "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing." As they were talking, they heard hurried footsteps from below. "He's really coming!" The brothers exchanged a triumphant glance, their eyes fixed on the top of the stairs. The footsteps lingered at the base of the stairs, but no one came up. Then my voice called out, "I'm not coming up! Just throw it down to me!" If I didn't come up, how could they execute their plan? Hearing this, both Mark and Timmy panicked. Timmy raised his voice. "I'll wait for you at the top of the stairs. Hurry up and get it." The person below hesitated. They must be suspicious. Mark was getting anxious. Time was running out. If I figured out it was a trap, I definitely wouldn't come up, and their plan would fail. No, he had to act fast. As he was thinking, he saw a head appear from below. Mark didn't get a clear look, only seeing someone in a blue shirt. I was wearing a blue shirt today. It had to be me. With that confirmation, Mark shoved Timmy hard down the stairs. He shouted, "Jack, what are you doing? Why did you push my brother? Help! Someone help! My brother was pushed down the stairs by Jack! Somebody save him!" Mark's cries for help were met with Timmy's horrific scream. Pushed from the top of the stairs by his own brother, he landed with a sickening thud. Down below, there was a steel rebar rod used for hanging clothes. As Timmy fell, the rod pierced straight through his upper thigh. Blood sprayed everywhere. His screams were inhuman. Hearing the screams and cries for help, everyone outside rushed in. From the second floor, Mark was frantically running down, shouting as he ran, "Jack, you heartless monster! If anything happens to my brother, I'll never forgive you." He finished his sentence just as he reached the bottom of the stairs. The scene before him left him stunned. "Timmy? Timmy?" He stared at his brother, impaled on the rod, unable to speak. Timmy had already passed out from the pain, blood pooling around him. Mark steeled himself and continued to scream, "Jack did this! Everyone be my witness!" A cold laugh came from the doorway. "What did I do?" Mark looked up, his eyes wide with shock. I was standing at the entrance. I hadn't even come inside, which meant the person who had appeared at the bottom of the stairs wasn't me at all. He turned his head and saw Mike, one of the neighbors, standing nearby wearing a blue shirt just like mine, trembling in shock. "Ah!" Mark let out a piercing, desperate scream. When Timmy was taken to the hospital, he was barely breathing. The rebar had gone straight through his thigh, directly damaging his internal organs. The doctors said his organs were severely damaged. It took them a full day and night to stabilize him. He was still on a ventilator, and it was uncertain if he would even live. Mark collapsed. At first he tried to frame me, but I had more than enough witnesses and evidence to prove I had never even entered the house. His plan had failed. Timmy was unconscious, the only other witness, so what happened was basically Mark's word against mine. He initially wanted to blame me, but I had an alibi. So Mark had to change his story, saying he had been mistaken. The police were suspicious of his conflicting accounts. But since he was Timmy's only relative, he had no motive to harm him. The investigation would have to wait until Timmy woke up. Mark was allowed to return home. By now, he knew his chances of getting my college spot were gone. He couldn't accept defeat like this. He had to grab onto something. Timmy, after being reborn, had told him that Sarah would later rise to a high rank and live a life of success. In that case, he had to hold on to Sarah for dear life. He couldn't lose. He had to win. A week later, Sarah returned from her mission. She parked her car at the door and hurried inside. As she walked, she called out my name. "Jack! Jack! I'm back!" I didn't answer. Sarah rushed upstairs. The lights were on, so someone was definitely home. She thought I was upstairs, but as she rounded the staircase and reached the second floor, a disheveled Mark rushed out from a room and grabbed her. Before Sarah could react, several other people burst into the house. She and Mark had been caught in the act. Surrounded by so many people while being held by a half-dressed Mark, Sarah was completely stunned. She frantically looked around for me. "Jack? Where's Jack? Jack, come out!" Mark told her coldly. "Don't bother yelling. Jack went to college. He's been gone for days." "What? Why did he leave? Wasn't he going to marry me? We even filed the application." Sarah didn't believe it. She wanted to find me. She had just returned from a successful mission and was about to be promoted to colonel. Mark, along with his aunt, uncle, and a host of other relatives, all threatened Sarah, demanding that she marry Mark or they would report her for immoral conduct. Sarah didn't want her career to end like this. She remembered that in her previous life, she had been incredibly successful. She wasn't willing to let it all end here. For the sake of her future, Sarah had no other choice. She chose to swallow her pride and marry Mark. Their wedding was rushed. The very next day, they filed the paperwork and became a family. Sarah was filled with resentment. She had never wanted to marry Mark. In her last life, her husband had always been me. Why had it become Mark this time? She couldn't understand. Sarah had never intended to marry Mark. She helped the brothers because Mark's older brother had once helped her. She owed him a favor. In her last life, she had heard from Mark that after his brother died, they had a miserable life, treated so badly by their aunt and uncle that it was worse than death. So when she was reborn, she wanted to rescue Mark from that hellhole as soon as possible. Sarah remembered clearly that in her previous life, helping Mark had gone off without a hitch. The Jack of her past life had been madly in love with her, giving up college for her sake. She, in turn, had given my college spot to Mark. After graduating, Mark was assigned to her, military unit as her assistant. He took care of her meticulously, and they got along very well. That's why when she was reborn, her first thought was to save Mark, to give him a better life sooner. Why did her good intentions turn into a disaster? Why was everything so different from her last life? I had left her, and Mark, the sweet, understanding man who had cared for her so deeply in her past life, had become a different person. He had become so disgusting, so opportunistic, so repulsive. I got away from all those rotten people and went to college in D.C. When I left, I took my official residency papers with me. Although Mr. and Mrs. Miller said they were my family and would always be my support, I knew I could only rely on myself. I didn't want any more contact with anyone related to Sarah. During my time in college, I never wrote or called them. They wrote to me, but I never read their letters or replied. 4 years went by quickly. I immersed myself in the ocean of knowledge, learning theories and subjects I had never encountered in my previous life. After graduation, I applied to work in the country's most challenging regions, wanting to serve my nation. Time really does fly. In a flash, 10 years had passed. Hard work always pays off. I returned with honor and hope. After the award ceremony, I ran into Mrs. Miller. I hadn't seen her in 10 years. She had aged a lot. She was retired now and was attending the ceremony as a veteran cadre. She held my hand, her voice filled with excitement. "Jack, I never imagined you'd achieve so much. I am so proud of you." I was also happy to see her and asked about Mr. Miller's health. Mrs. Miller sighed. "Your Uncle Miller is paralyzed." "How did that happen?" "It's a long story." Mrs. Miller then told me what had happened. From her story, I learned about things I had never bothered to follow. I had always assumed that after getting together, Sarah and Mark would become as successful as they were in my previous life. I never thought it would turn out so differently. Sarah and Mark got married as planned, burdened with a partially paralyzed Timmy. Timmy had a volatile temper and would often throw fits and break things at home. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were very unhappy with the marriage, but there was nothing they could do. After all, Mark held Sarah's past over her head, threatening her with it whenever he wanted something. Sarah lost her spirit and made a major mistake at work. She received a formal demerit from the military. Her promotion to colonel was rescinded, and with a demerit on her record, her chances of advancement were gone. She had no choice but to take an early discharge. Her civilian career was fraught with obstacles. Her mood soured, and she fought with Mark constantly. Mr. Miller, who already disliked Mark, decided to go over and try to mediate after hearing about their fights. But instead, he overheard Timmy and Mark arguing. Timmy was accusing Mark of pushing him down the stairs, causing the fall that left him paralyzed and unable to ever stand again. Mr. Miller was furious when he learned the truth and was about to go to the police. But Mark discovered him. In a fit of madness, Mark tried to kill Mr. Miller. He pushed him down the stairs, severely injuring him. Mark thought he was dead. But Mr. Miller clung to life, and eventually the truth about what Mark had done came out. The police arrested Mark, and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. And from then on, Sarah fell even further into despair. She lived each day in pain and self-reproach. Hearing Mrs. Miller's story, I felt a great deal of sympathy for Mr. Miller. In my last life, he had lived a happy and comfortable life. I never thought this life would end so tragically for him. As for Sarah, I never felt a shred of pity for her. She brought it all on herself. They say you reap what you sow. The fact that Sarah couldn't continue her climb to success and Mark couldn't live a life of ease shows that it's better to be a decent person. After all, if you do bad things, you will eventually be punished. So it's better to be kind.